Hey, Neil here from Linx Digital, and today I want to talk about the differences between webinars and VSLs and which ones you guys should use when it comes to YouTube ads for your businesses. Now, before I jump into the video, I want to make sure that you guys are liking and subscribing to the channel. Like I mentioned last video, we are pumping out a ton of content. So I want to make sure that it's getting to you guys and you guys are notified when that comes out. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. What are we talking about when it comes to webinars? Well, these are usually pre-recorded presentations, and sometimes they are presented as live, but most of the time they're pre-recorded presentations that are between an hour to 3 hours long, right? They're a long form sales video. When we talk about VSLs, what we're talking about are shorter video sales letters that are about 10 to 25 minutes long. Now, one of the differences with VSLs and webinars when we're talking about YouTube ads is with a VSL, usually the person watching it is allowed to scrub through the video. They can access the play bar at the bottom. They can jump around at different times of the video. Whereas with a webinar, it's a live webinar, so you can't really jump around the webinar. You have to watch the entire presentation. When it comes to YouTube ads and which ones you guys should be running, well, that totally depends on your audience. As a general rule of thumb, if you have a mass market audience, you can get away with using webinars. But if you are going after a niche specific audience, almost like a B2B audience, it's kind of best practice to use VSLs. Why do you want to use VSLs when it comes to B2B marketing, especially around the internet marketing industry? What you'll notice is a lot of people have used webinars over the last few years, and people kind of have caught on to the trick. And especially if you're marketing to business owners or executives that are high up in companies, they may not have the time to sit through a 3-hour presentation, even an hour long. And that's why you want to present them with VSLs. They've seen webinars before, they know that they're not live, and they just want to get to the clean, important parts of the video. That's why you want to be pushing VSLs. The advantage of webinars, especially to a mass market audience, is that you get more screen time, right? Especially if they haven't seen webinars before, right? They're going to be very intrigued. They're going to sit through almost 3 hours of screen time. That's 3 hours that you get to sell them on your product or service, which is invaluable. You do have to be careful with your audience when it comes to webinars, especially if you are going after a make money online or a mass market audience, right? Especially ones that have seen webinars before, because they won't be as enticed to sit through a 3-hour webinar, especially if they know that these things aren't live anymore. So you have to be careful in that respect. What we recommend with those mass market audiences, especially the ones that are around make money online, is that you want to shorten your webinar, and you may not want to present it as a live webinar, right? Depending on your audience and its audience sophistication. When it comes to YouTube ads and the differences between webinars and VSLs, I will say that there isn't that much of a difference when it comes to the front end. And what I mean by this is your ad basically dictates your cost per lead, right? Whether you are getting registrations for your webinars or you're getting your registrations for your VSL, or you're collecting emails and that sort of things. Usually it is all dependent on the ad, right? The cost per click and the cost per lead and CTR and all those stuff, the front end metrics are really determined by the ad itself. The type of offer that you're offering, whether it's a webinar or VSL, will not really dictate your cost per lead. Where we do see a little bit of a difference is with the cost for somebody to watch your entire sales presentation. And this is actually not dependent on your YouTube ad itself. See, the job of the YouTube ad is to get somebody to register for your offer, right? Whether it's a webinar or a VSL. What the customer does after that isn't really dependent on the YouTube ad. So if you're finding that your webinar is really highly engaging and people are watching it all the way through, then that might be a great strategy for you. Whereas like if you're finding that nobody's even showing up for your webinar because your email marketing and your SMS follow-ups for your webinars are a little weak, then the YouTube ads won't really help with that show up rate. And this applies to VSLs as well. So if nobody's watching your entire VSL, it's not going to be the ads that are going to solve it, right? So what it really comes down to a YouTube ad perspective is your front end costs, right? And those two things, whether it's your cost per lead for your webinars or your cost per registrations for your VSLs, those aren't going to be that different. It all comes down to your ad. And I hope you guys got a little bit more clarity when it comes to webinars and VSLs. I'll catch you guys in the next video. For now, cheers.